Good evening, everyone, once again, or good afternoon, depending upon because this is being recorded and it could be played at a later time, or good morning, depending upon where you are in the world. So we continue on with our study on this book, Times of Health and Conscientiousness. We are on chapter 18. Just want to check with some technical things there in the back. Daniel, can I move from the spot? Best I stay. Stay? Okay. All right, limited mobility, that's okay. That's okay, because today we're talking about blessings, right? We're talking about blessings. So let's focus on those blessings. Focus on the blessing of I get to stand here and be with you all. Is that good? Okay, just making some technical adjustments here. So glad to have you all here. Feel free to move up closer if you want to. If not, that's okay. For those of you who have listened to the other 17 chapters of this book, Joanna always brings something really, really inspiring and obviously related to some form of our health, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, or all the above, or sort of mixed in all together. But in this particular chapter, yes, yep. Yep. Okay. Slight technical difficulty. Yes. Okay. All right. Let's go back to my PowerPoint. Sorry. Good. All right. The blessing of being here. The blessing of health. It's all good. All good. I was trying to think of a story or an instance where we all could relate to this. So, you know, when you're young or when you're a little kid, and you know, either you're scared to go to the dentist or the doctor or what have you, and usually it's the mom, sometimes the dad, maybe in other cases it could be a grandparent, depending on who raised you, but you know, they tell you things to comfort you, or sometimes they tell a little white lie. Or, you know, I remember one time I went with a neighbor of mine, who was actually a friend, to the dentist. It was just, you know, hop, skip, and a jump from our house, my childhood home. And I'm not even sure what this was, but her mother used to give her like this special lotion that she said if she put it on right before the dentist, she'd have no pain and no problems. So, like, as a kid, I remember thinking, wow, that's so cool. Like, and my neighbor telling me that it was like cost a lot of money. So I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'll never get it because we don't have money. But it was funny because now looking back, some of us might know that as the placebo effect, because myself and my other siblings, when we went to the dentist, it was, you know, we were above anxiety, having to go there and sit. It just was, you know, not pleasant. But for her, she always seemed so tranquil. Once her mom lathered on that special lotion, she seemed fine. And I don't remember what age we were when she found that out. I think it's just kind of like getting older, just like, oh yeah, of course that's crazy, you know. But looking back now and thinking about what we're going to talk a little bit about today, this placebo effect and how our mind is so powerful. If we believe something, that it actually has an effect. Now, like 50 or plus years ago, we've known about the placebo effect all the way back to Benjamin Franklin and Lavoisier. We've known about the placebo effect. The placebo effect. It might have gone back further, but off the top of my head, I can say I know it's gone back at least as far as the founding fathers. So we know it's been in existence, but research has been studying it more and more. And even in psychiatry, they've been looking at it more and more in the recent years as something legitimate in terms of having patients take responsibility for their own self-healing. But still, we have a long way to go. But I digress. Research on the placebo effect. Most of us know, and if you don't know what the placebo effect is, it's basically someone telling you something, much like the lotion. And because this little girl believed it to be true, she felt no pain when she went to the dentist. She wasn't afraid. Like she was like, it was as if this lotion gave her superpowers. And it was like a walk in the park, if you will, for her. But if for some reason her mom didn't give it to her, if her dad took her, she would be freaking out. But, the days that her mom took her, had the lotion, she was good. So the placebo effect is this, basically, it's believing in something that's not technically real, possibly. But it's not that we're not believing in something real, but it's us having the faith and the belief. It just shows us how powerful our mind is. So this is just a little cartoon about these pills. It's like a mother and father pill, and the father pill says, "What's wrong with him?" And the mother says, "Oh, the doctor just told him he's a placebo. So he's not even real. He doesn't exist." Well, we know that extensive amounts of research that's out there that's been done on the placebo effect, and also the nocebo effect, which we'll talk about in a second. We're not going to go crazy into depth into this. We just know that it has actual effects in the brain, and it works. In layman's terms, it works. Does it always work? No. So of course, when we're using, I'm not going to go heavily into research, but when they're looking at whether or not a certain drug may work, they know on average, I think the percentage is about 20%, when they're testing certain drugs like high blood pressure medication. When they're testing different patients, when they're using the placebo effect, 20% is about the percentage of the placebo effect that goes into it. So a patient could have been given a sugar pill, and the control group could have been given the actual pill, and they both come out having the same effects of lower blood pressure. So you say, well, how is that possible? Well, because the person thought and believed that they were taking the pill. So they took it, and their body actually had a reaction to it. So they're finding, obviously, that this is something really positive, because wait a second, if I believe something that's not, the pill is just a sugar pill, but if I believe it can heal me, then I can be healed and I can be helped. And there's something called the nocebo effect, where people actually experience side effects, headaches, nausea, things of that nature. It's more rare, but it still does happen, at least in terms of research. But interesting things that have come out of the placebo effect, they found that verbal, conditioned, and social cues create expectancy, driving the placebo effect. So the input that's coming, so if the mother that's telling the child that, oh, this lotion's going to help you, they believe that, they take it in, and it's truth. There's also a lot of neuroimaging study that explains how the placebo effect works. This is just a diagram, just showing how it is all the way down to the hippocampus, the amygdala, and that the placebo effect has been shown to involve the release of opioids, dopamine, and cannabinoids, just really fancy words, just the good stuff in your brain it releases. So when that little girl got that lotion before the dentist, it was like immediately her body just her brain released all of these good feeling, oh my goodness, I'm forgetting the word, all of the chemical in her body. So she felt like, I'm strong, I'm strong, I'm brave. So she believed that nothing could hurt her. As well as oxytocin and vasopressin receptor agonists enhance the placebo effect. So there's a lot of research out there saying all this to say that proves that if we believe that we are going to be healthy, then we actually have the ability to affect change in our body. And there's even other studies, which I didn't show here, but I thought was really interesting to note, that the research has shown, patients who have faith in their providers do so much better, are healthier, and just overall have better longevity when they trust their primary care provider. patients, and that also applies to any doctor that you're seeing for whatever reason. Patients who do not have faith in their provider tend not to do well. So I'm not saying that, never question your doctor or nurse or whatever. We're just saying this is just the research that was out there. And there's something to be said about having faith in the person who's treating you. That's not to say that you should blindly believe someone, but finding the right provider for you that you feel that you're in sync with. And that's important too. If it's a healthcare provider that you're seeing on every 3 months or once a year, you want somebody that you feel like you can talk to that, doesn't think that you're, if you're like, well, I like alternative things, and like, oh, that's a bunch of hogwash. If that's not what you believe, it's important to find someone that at least is as close to what you believe is possible. For those of you who live in the Maryland area, right here in Maryland, the Timonium area, there's a physician I'm going to mention. And the reason I'm mentioning him is because most alternative medicine providers don't tend to take insurance for 1,000 reasons. But this particular provider, he practices Chinese medicine. He's actually Korean. He practices alternative medicine. He practices acupuncture. Has more so, non-Western ways of thinking about health. Although he is he's here, he's Dr. He's fantastic. He's wonderful. He's the most caring primary care provider I've had. Not that I've had horrible ones in the past, but for those of you who are like, and he takes insurance. So those of you who are like, I can't find someone like that, talk to me later. I'll give you his information. I digress. Placebo effect. We know that our ability to believe and have faith has an effect on our health, whether it's one way or another, whether we believe, oh, I'm just going to die and that's it, and you lose all your hope. All those things have an effect. But Joanna starts out this chapter in the following way. She describes health, and she says that it's the result of several factors that come together for psychophysical harmony. And that health coming from the spirit, energy produces cells. Coming from the spirit, so energy produces cells, sustains them during the ministry of physical life, thus enabling them to fulfill their purpose. Radiating by means of the paraspirit, energy fosters the preservation of the body, providing resistance against the constant aggression of destructive agents. So me, the spirit, immortal spirit that I am, that is where everything comes from, gets filtered through the paraspirit and then onto my physical body. That is how it works. That's why we understand that when we have a health problem, it's not in the physical body. This is just the manifestation of where it's, manifesting, but it stems in our spirit. We're going to talk more about that in here in a second. Joanna talks about this energy within us, energy that gets exuded. And she says, when this energy becomes disrupted, these microbial invaders win the battle and settle in, giving rise to illnesses. So although this photo is specific to auras, specific to auras and whatnot, but this is the closest I could find to kind of give a visualization of what might look like, balanced energy, and the person on the image on the left versus the image on the right, where the energy is all it looks hectic, it looks kind of dark. So when the energy that we emanate, when it gets disrupted, it actually acts in the same manner as we have, if you can imagine or understand that in our physical body and on the outside of our physical body, we have natural growing microbes. They call them flora and fauna. Flora and fauna? I think it's not flora. Natural flora, not fauna. That's just, it's a protective mechanism. So it's naturally occurring in our bodies. So the same is true when we are emanating different energies. So when you're out here living your life, you're going to the CVS and you're thinking about all these issues that you're having, or if you're thinking about this fight, or you're thinking, let's say, for instance, so you were fighting with your neighbor and you're thinking about the sad conversation you had, or not sad, hard conversation you had, you're linking up with all these negative thoughts. You could be disrupting your energy. So when that gets disrupted, it sort of leaves kind of like cracks. And I don't have my pointer because it's not working. But you see how this is, and this is not exact. Sorry, Daniel. This is not exact, but just so we can visualize, use a sort of a visual analogy of it. Imagine your energy, when it's balanced, it's this protective oval around you, right? But then when you're emotionally and mentally stressed out or really disturbed by something, and your energy, it is off. And then it leaves sort of, you can kind of see here, like little openings, little cracks, and through those cracks is where the microbes invade. And so when we talked about the normal flora that exists in and outside of our body, there are spiritual microbes that exist. So, and if we are, if we are a type of person who meditates and prays and tries their best just to, stay positive and feed themselves, healthy things, not just physically, but, watching things that are not disturbing, usually we're able to be in that protective cover. But when we are stressed, and we know this already about the physical body, that when the human body is stressed, we are more likely and we are more at risk to get sick, to have illnesses of all different kinds. So it's the same thing. As so in the body, of course, it's going to be in the spirit as well. So it's something for us to think about. Joanna goes on to say that in the area of emotional and mental phenomenon, due to the delicate workings of the apparatus through which they are expressed, the incidence of the spirit's energy wave in these subtle tissues is the cause of imbalance, rendering disorders and alienating afflictions more serious. So in the area of emotional and mental phenomenon, due to the fact that it has delicate workings in its apparatus, which are expressed, the incidence of the spirit's energy wave in these subtle tissues is the cause of imbalance. Does that make sense? It's enlightening for us. She goes on to say, in this state of affairs, undermined by pernicious mental discharges and the disorder they cause, individuals' deep structures foster attunement with disruptive and vengeful spirits who gain access to the mental field, producing obsessions. So I wanted to show something to kind of illustrate this in a layman's kind of term. I'm trying to find something that I'm not. Okay. So in layman's terms, here we have two things, right? And so doesn't really do anything, right? But if I were to rip that, we have a lot of these guys. It's okay. I'm not ripping the SSB one. If we were to cause a tear in this one, allowing, oh, let's see, that didn't go over well. Allowing perfectly, let's pretend this is perfect, perfectly to attach. This is what she's talking about. When we are emotionally and mentally unwell, and this disturbance is going to come about in our energy centers, we then create an opening that becomes perfect for an obsessor to go, oh, I can connect there. It's like, oh, you know the new iPhone 13? I forget which iPhone it was where the cable changed. But it used to be this other cable, and then they changed it like this small little one, and how annoying is that, right? But it's just like, if you were like out with your friends, it's like, oh, and your phone starts to die, and you're like, oh, who has the new iPhone charger? And everyone's like, oh, I only have the old one. You're like, oh, darn. That's kind of like how the obsessor is. Like, oh, I have the new one. Let's see who I can plug into. And it's like, oh, I see Jack over here. He's got the old one, and so do I. I'm going to connect right to. So in a very beautiful way here, I'm able to illustrate of how that works. So, but it's for us to think about. Every time you become upset, every time you get into an argument, or every time you have an argument with yourself, anytime you feel unwell, stressed out, any small negative emotion, this is the trick, okay? We can open ourselves up for a connection with a spirit that's not so good, that can cause us harm. Now you might say to me, Kirsten, life is stressful. I'm going to have moments of stress. Like, I can't avoid that. We're human beings. We're going to have happy moments. We're going to have sad moments. Am I supposed to pretend like I don't feel anything? Am I supposed to be a robot? No, not at all. So the idea is you can feel your feelings. You can acknowledge them. But also, as we are acknowledging them, know to take the steps in doing that work on yourself. So I'll give you a for example. And we have created this habit because we used to drive a lot between states for a few years and caught a lot of traffic between Philly, DC, and this Maryland area. A lot of, I'm not trying to offend anyone, but Pennsylvania drivers were much better. I'm from Pennsylvania, by the way. We're much better drivers in Maryland. They do not use turn signals. I don't know what it is. I've been here for 10 plus years. Yeah, it doesn't come with the car. Okay, someone says, yeah. So I noticed myself becoming very easily agitated and angry. Some might refer to it as road rage. So I realized I had to come up with a tactic to counteract that. So one day I was driving and I was thinking to myself, I was in a silly mood. And I was thinking to myself, I have to come up with something that I can sort of knock myself out of this emotion of anger and try to understand the other person. So that I had a perfect idea that I still use today, that I think I even got, people around me in my life hooked on, my immediate people that are close to me. So now when people cut me off or are just doing crazy things in traffic, I always say either out loud or in my mind, I say, this person really must have to use the bathroom, like really bad. Like maybe they have the runs or something, like something kind of silly, because they might, you don't know. Maybe they're running to see a relative that's passing. We just don't know their reason for it. Often I hear people say, oh, what are they in such a rush for? Well, you don't know what they're in a rush for. What if they are trying to reach someone's funeral? What if they're trying to rush to listen to the last words their grandmother or mother is about to say? I remember the day that my father, when he started to act, when he was actively dying, my sister, one of my older sisters, who lived about 30 minutes away from them, she was running every red light. And she said, by like the 6th or 7th red light that she ran through, the cop stopped her. And she wrote on her window. And before he even could approach her car, she was yelling at him, "My dad is dying. I need to go." And he said, "Just go, just go, just go." Oh, I got chills in my arm. So, and she said, and I went, and he just followed behind me. Like, so, goosebumps. So I say all this to say, we don't know what people are going through. So if we could try to, when we're experiencing negative emotions, if we can try to step out of ourselves and show our own self some compassion, but also show others compassion, it's very beneficial for us to be able to mitigate that difficulty. And Joanna in this chapter talks about how important preventative medicine is. And this is really important. I want us to really listen to this, take note of this, whether it's a mental note or otherwise. This is very important to note. Oftentimes, not oftentimes, usually, we go to the doctor when we're sick, aside from maybe the once a year. You might see your dentist every 6 months, but in between, if you have, a pain in your tooth, you go see your doctor, right? Other than that, you don't bother your doctor, you don't bother anyone else, you just live your life, right? Well, Joanna comes in and reminds us the following, that the preservation of our health requires constant. What does constant mean? What is the definition of the word constant? Gentleman in the back, what is the definition of the word constant? What does it mean to be constant? Non-stopping. Anyone else? Continuous, always, ongoing. So Joanna does not mix words here. She says the preservation of one's health requires constant, ongoing, continuous, preventative care. Preventative. What is preventative care? Just shout it out. What is to prevent something? What is preventative care? Take care of yourself before something happens. Anticipation. So it would be like, well, I'm going to brush my teeth every day because it's preventative care. I'm going to exercise like Leo does and go to the gym every day, even when it's like, I don't know, 6 feet of snow outside. But you make that dedication to yourself to do those things. But it's not just physical. It's not just physical. It means that, because it's not just, remember, Jesus said, it's not what you put in your mouth that makes you pure or holy. It is important to eat well, take care of the physical body, but the ongoing therapeutics for the valuable achievements for which one is destined during reincarnation. What does that look like? We'll talk about that here in a second. But preventative care of our psychosocial, emotional selves. She says, given the myriad of pathologies that afflict humans, maintaining one's mental and emotional stability is crucial for staying healthy. If I could have a megaphone. Maintaining our mental and emotional stability is crucial for staying healthy. So many of us work at a job, live a life that completely makes us feel emotionally unstable and mentally unwell. Now, guys, step back for a second. Everyone's job place is stressful from time to time. We all have different types of people we work with. Some are better than others. But we try to be compassionate. Remember, we talked about expressing compassion for ourselves, but also for others. But what she's doing here is giving us the license and the right and the reminding us of the priority of our own mental, emotional stability. It's crucial for us staying healthy, because if I don't have that, I've had patients I've taken care of over the years that have been in tip-top shape. Blood pressure is great. All their labs are good. They're otherwise healthy, but they're depressed. Or they have other emotional issues going on. This is key. And maintaining this means that we are working on preventative care and ongoing therapeutics, which could look like what? That could look like doing your God at home, meditation, taking the time out every day to read something positive, making that a habitual part of your life. So now I stop and I want you to ask yourself this question. You don't have to answer out loud, but I'm going to ask this question, and I want you to ask yourself this. What do you do every day to maintain a connection with the divine within you and the divine above? What do you do every day to help maintain that connection?
Right. I read the page.
Every day?
Every day in the morning. Right.
Well, I know you do, Joni, because I get your text messages. We all get it from Joni, yeah. Yes. It's meant to be a rhetorical question, but thank you all for sharing. I didn't want to put anyone on the spot. Because, we all can get caught up in our busy lives and forget about these things. And then days turn into weeks, weeks turn into years, and before you know it, you're 100 pounds overweight. So it's very easy to forget and to not put these things as a priority. And we wanted to talk about this factor, human faith and divine faith. Because all of these things, this preventative care, this preventative medicine that Joanna talks about, this lies within us, the capability to have faith and believe, to be optimistic. So in the Gospels, there's two types of faith. There's human faith and divine faith. Human faith is when you just have faith in the physical things. And they say faith is either human or divine, depending on whether people apply their faculties to their earthly needs or to their heavenly and future aspirations. We know that. You can look at people that are extremely successful. Those are the people who have had constant faith in themselves, the Elon Musks of the world, the Bill Gates. These are the people who, if you, thousands of interviews that they've given about their lives, how steadfast they were, and they had a vision, and they achieved it. This is that human faith. And we all have this. We all have this capability that and this goes back to the placebo effect that we were talking about earlier. If you have that faith, you can achieve amazing things. Raul Teixeira, he is, many of you know him as the Brazilian Spiritist medium. He suffered a stroke, I don't know, Daniel, was it 10 years ago almost, give or take? And the type of stroke that he suffered in the area of the brain is one of the most devastating strokes that can happen to you. And a very, I want to say less than 10% of patients regain any ability to really talk. And we just saw him, it was a couple weeks ago. And it was, totally blown away by how much he has progressed. And why is that? Because from day one, he put it in his mind and in his heart that I'm going to do everything in my power to regain as much function as I can. And it's amazing to see him and how much he has progressed in these years. So it is that human faith, but also that divine faith in believing. And this is when we talked about those people that are of genius, individuals of genius who pursue the accomplishment of some great enterprise, triumph if they have faith. This certainty provides them with immense power. We all have this capability. We all just don't do it. Because we doubt. I can't do it. But if we can envision it, and we've talked about this before, about envisioning our goals and setting goals, because we have so much power in our mind that if we can envision ourselves crossing that finish line before we even start the race, we're 10 times more likely to cross that finish line versus someone who goes, I don't know. I just don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. Runners do this. Athletes do this. They have they've done studies on professional athletes, and they wanting to see how the brain and the body react when they just imagine themselves on the track or whatever it is that they're doing, and the reactions in the brain are the same as if they were doing it. So we have power. So Joanna, of course, she shares with us in this chapter the advice on being and staying healthy. She says the following: always see yourself as healthy. Even if your doctor says you have XYZ. When you're thinking and imagining yourself, and this is part of preventative medicine as well, always envisioning yourself as healthy. And if you want to get skinny, you have to see yourself skinny. Obviously, I haven't been doing that enough, but you got to see yourself skinny. My mother always suggested, we'll print out a photo of you when you were skinny and put it on the refrigerator so, you don't open the door, and still haven't done that, obviously. But it is that mental power that we have. And people who have done this can attest to it. Cultivate optimism based on love, hope, and ennobling action. Things that are noble. It's so important to cultivate optimism. It's so easy to do the opposite. We ourselves can get caught into this negative loop because a lot of it is true. I'll give you for example. I was watching this semi-political person on YouTube, and everything they said was true. But I realized the more and more and more I watch it, the more pessimistic my thoughts were starting to become. And I'm like, wait. Like, I know these things to me are true and real, but the more that I constantly watch them every day, like, it's not helpful to me. Maybe to others, everyone reacts to things differently. Like, I can't watch horror movies. It affects me. I won't be able to sleep, and I'll be scared for days. So I don't watch them. But there are certain other people who can, and it doesn't affect them. So you have to be cognizant of what works for you, even though eventually it does affect all of us when you begin to realize and pay attention. And Joanna also gives us the advice that, are we sick? If you are sick, okay, take advantage of it. Because it's an opportunity, Joanna says, for invaluable insights into your behavior and reprogram your activities. I have is a bad word, but I don't know another word to explain this, but I have a best friend I've known since I was 9 years old, still my best friend. So 30 years? Wow, seems long. And she has had this belief for as long as I can remember her of this, like, whenever you get sick, you have to stop and do an internal review of your own emotions and feelings. And I remember for a long, long time, I think I told her this, that it was like so annoying because we were like teenagers, and like if I would come to school, because we went to the same elementary school and the same middle school together, but not the same high school. I come to school with like a little cold, and she would take me by the hand. Edith, come up here real quick. I'm going to illustrate this. So imagine like little 12-year-old girls, right? But like, if you can imagine a 12-year-old girl, any 12-year-old girl, whether it's from 20 years ago or now, it's like you're into like boys and all this kind of things and whatnot. But she was very different, still is kind of different. She'd be like, if I was sick, she'd be like, Kirsten, my friend, let's have a seat. There's something within you that you need to work on. Let's sit down, let's meditate, and let's see where in your energy feel. 12 years old doing this, legitimately. Like when we were like 10, 11, 12. And we obviously, my friends would continue with her. Like even when you go to the same high school, so I would, call her on a landline. If you guys don't remember what that is, you guys will probably all do. On a landline. And I would be like sick or not feeling well. And she was like, hey, Kirsten, it's time to let's do some reflection. Like, what's going on in your inner world? That was how she phrased it. What's going on in your inner world? It used to annoy me because I was Spiritist, but I'm like, we're like 15. Like, who cares? But I realized that her friendship was such a blessing to me throughout the years. And to an extent, it was a little bit much, but I realized over 30 years that there actually is validity in that, in stopping to ask ourselves, okay, why do I feel the way I feel? So for instance, I had many, sorry, Dana, I keep hitting this. I had chronic throat issues for a very long time. And I had like multiple occurrences of tonsillitis. So, but I worked through different meditations and working through what the issue could be. And now I'm happy to say I rarely ever have any serious issues with my throat. And even so much so that in talking with, it was like a year or two ago with one of the daughters of the people who go here at the center, Luciana or Lulu, and my daughter Sarah were talking because they both had, were having like a sore throat or something. So I remember hearing them over FaceTime go, okay, let's meditate over our throat and let's just like put like crystals or something. I was like, guys, come on, seriously. But it really, they truly believed it. And let me tell you, they felt better. So this ability for us to heal ourselves is real and it's there. And the need for us to stop and reflect why I'm in that position. But to constantly thinking about health and earnestly wanting to desire it with a noble intent. Not to be healthy because I want to be rich and famous and, live this lavish life and screw everybody over. No, I want to be healthy and I really want to have it because I want to help others. I want to have longevity because I want to bring goodness into the world. For those purposes. We're coming to a close and I wanted to share a true story. You know how there's an algorithm on social media, right? So I got rid of most of my social media. And I actually just turned one back on just to watch something. But we were watching, YouTube has these shorts, I think it's called. And they you're scrolling through and for some reason, I'm not really sure why this happened because I don't Google anything on Islam, but I seem to get a lot of shorts about Islam. But I actually heard this really good story of this older Islamic woman. She told the story. She said that, and this lady was in her 70s. She's telling the story. Really elderly looking Islamic woman, the hijab and everything. And she said something that made a huge mark in her life. She said, when I was about 50 years old, my best friend got breast cancer. And she died a few years after that. But she said what was most remarkable is that at that time, her children were still kind of young, not teenagers yet. And she said, she turned to me as she quite literally was on her deathbed. And she turned to me and said, I told Allah that there are two things I hope to accomplish before I die. I want to memorize the Quran and I want to do as much good as I can do in my remaining days. And that's what she did with her remaining time. She studied the Quran because that was what brought her peace. That was most important to her. And so she said, and then her friend died, obviously not being able to memorize the whole Quran. But she said, what I took away from that was, here I am, 70 some years old. At that time, I was in my 50s, close in age to her. What is my excuse for not living a more noble life? Like, here was this woman, she was dying. She had kids, living behind a husband, and like 3 young children. And all she wanted to do was to worship God and to study what she believed to be his word, because she was such a devout Muslim. That was so important to her. And this woman who was telling the story, she said, then I had to stop and ask myself the question, why am I not living a more righteous life? Like, should I wait till I get a diagnosis like that to decide to change? So it's something for us to think about. Let us not wait for that negative experience in our life before we actually decide to change and commit ourselves to something that serves a higher purpose. Final thoughts from Joanna. Connect with the generous source from which all forces emanate and absorb the resources you need for rebalancing yourself. And so this is me asking this question. What are some examples of this? And what do you do to accomplish this? How do you connect with the generous source from which all forces emanate and absorb? How do you absorb the resources you need for rebalancing yourself from the great source, which some might call God, Allah, Jehovah? This is not a rhetorical question. Feel free to shout it out. What do you do on a daily basis to connect with God and absorb those resources for rebalancing? She doesn't say every day. She just says, how do you connect? Well, actually, she says, connect. I'm asking, how do you connect? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Praying. Yeah. What works for other people? Meditation.
Gratitude also, any type of gratitude that you can give thanks for something that you have, whether physical, spiritual, health is a way to connect.
Yeah. Let me rephrase the question a little bit too. What helps you feel closer to God? Nature?
Doing what is right.
Doing what is right.
Helping people.
Helping people.
Listening to people.
Listening to people.
Praying for people.
Praying for people. There are no wrong answers. Yeah. Isabella?
I'd say praying and also helping people.
Helping people and praying, yeah. Yeah. Something for us to think about. And lastly, she tells us this: replenish your mind with thoughts of peace, compassion, solidarity, forgiveness, tenderness. Tenderness. The word in Portuguese for tenderness is I have to look in the original. To be tender. Yeah. There's another word in Portuguese. It's more than... Ternura. Ternura. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. Ternura. Whenever I think of Brazilian culture, I think of that word. Ternura. It's something that we here in the West, we lack. We have other things that are great and fantastic. But it's that ability to be tender, to be soft. Not that all Brazilians are soft and tender, but it just means that we have the inclination to be that way in a cultural way. But all of us have the ability to replenish our minds. And this is where we ask again, what do you do to achieve replenishment? Is replenishment a word? Replenishment through peace, compassion, solidarity, forgiveness. What do you do? Like Joanna says you need to replenish your mind with thoughts of peace. So where do you go? What do you do? Do you meditate? Do you pray? Do you put on a DVD that's really uplifting? What do you do? When you just want to feel peace. Listen to good music. Breathing. Breathing's really good. Like the deep breathing. And things come. Kundalini yoga, very good. It's connected with the breathing. Compassion. Can I do these things by myself?
You can start with you.
Yeah.
Because you
Starts
cannot
with
give
us.
what you don't have. So how are you going to be compassionate if you're not with yourself?
Mm-hmm. And lastly, she ends with involving yourself emotionally with life so that you feel you are a part of it, conscious and happy. So for us, that means being being present. And I heard, and this is, let me share the very, very last thoughts of what she shares. Let me see. I can't see the time clock back there. Okay. Go back 1 second. It's important to involve yourself emotionally with life so that you are consciously a part of it. So in order to experience deep love, you have to be open, which means you open yourself up to also deep pain. But if we are able to open ourselves up, have that faith in our ability to endure, that pain pales in comparison to the amount of love and joy and peace we can feel. And for those of us who have been through really traumatic experiences in life and have come out the other end, we can attest to that. We can testify to that fact. Last thoughts. Joanna says, in any circumstance, illness is a blessed trial, except when deforming, alienating, or limiting, it constitutes a timely expiation. Sometimes it's a trial, sometimes it's an expiation that the sovereign laws utilize in order to help the evolution of the unrighteous, who almost all of us are in one way or another. If you are healthy, use this opportunity to preserve yourself, increasing and improving your production. If you are sick, thank God and expand your mental horizons in love so that you may recuperate today or later, moving forward in peace and in confidence. And lastly, we always share the affirmations in the beginning, but we decided to start doing them at the end. Oops, sorry about that. As just a last sort of meditation. And you can just say this in your mind. Divine vitality sweeps over me, and I absorb it in an excellent emotional disposition. I am free of the toxic burdens of psychological burnout, sorrow, hatred, jealousy, revenge, envy, and bitterness. I am of healthy provenance. Illness is an accident along the way, but it does not prevent me from progressing. Healthy and confident, I advance, vitalized by the breath of the generating fount of life. So it's important that as part of our meditation, our daily meditation, that we envision ourselves healthy and well. Even if you might think to yourself or even respond to me and say, Kirsten, but I'm not. My back hurts. I'm stressed about my neighbor who just is driving me crazy. And, the squirrels keep coming into my house through the roof and it's costing me thousands of dollars. There are a slew of things that they're absolutely valid for us to be stressed about. Absolutely. But what Joanna's proposing is that, okay, you can sit and think and contemplate and ruminate in those things. You can work on them. You call the professionals, whoever you call when the squirrels are attacking or trying to live in your roof. I don't know who you call for that, but you take all the necessary actions that you need to take. But you also realize that our mental and emotional health and well-being is important. So I take the time out every day to visualize myself as healthy, as well, as happy, and putting that emphasis on preventative medicine, that we are doing the work daily. So friends, well, 5 minutes over. So let us switch over to second half of our meeting, to the passes. Just going to stop sharing here. Those who are watching online, stop screen. Oh. Let us, as we put the music on, okay. So let us shift our minds a little bit. Let us connect with our divine creator. To the divine within us, remembering that we are children of God. We were created by this amazing creator that loves us so ferociously, that will stop at nothing to see us happy and to support and love us, providing so many blessings around us, even when we cannot see it. God, may we clear our vision, take off our rose-colored glasses, and be able to see the blessings before us amidst the pain. Allow us to see the good in others and in ourselves. Let us forgive those who have hurt us, and in turn ask for forgiveness for those we have harmed or hurt. Dear God, may we be kind to those who are not kind to us. May we give the gift of forgiveness to others, even when they cannot give us the gift of kindness back. May we be still and know that you are God above all, and be reminded that we always have our guardian angel or spirit mentor with us, trying to inspire us in the lowest of our lowest moments and the highest of our highest. But let us always be humble and remember our purpose. Let us transition now to this moment of passes. If you are watching virtually, please just take this moment as a moment of inner meditation and prayer, connecting with the higher minds. And now we call those here in our physical space to come and serve at the front.